Welcome back to my channel. It's still Joseph, right? So sorry, I took a break for a bit. I had to sort out some things, but I'm back now. Yeah, I'm back. People have been sending me messages asking me to start a project in which beginners can actually follow along and basically code along, right? So this is what I'll do. I don't have a project in mind. You can suggest it in the you can actually suggest these projects in the comment section. But this is what I'll do. I'll start with the structure. Project structure I tend to use most time, and I think it's a bit universal if you're using it. Um, we tend to use it. I tend to use it anyways, right? That has the CMD and then the internals, right? And then from there we might now go into the necessary things. They call it boilerplates. We call it boilerplate code, right? In which we just put the necessary things for you to at least start building upon whenever we decide to on the project to build. So this for this video, we might probably be looking at setting up the config files, the config that your environment variable, maybe your environment variables, you don't have an environment variables in mind, but basically you set up the git, the git, and then the env, the config, and then maybe the router. Let's see how far we can go with that, and then maybe in subsequent videos we would talk about setting up maybe the database, the authentication and whatever. So please stay with me. Like I said, welcome. So where do we start from? When you are writing a Golang project, you probably want to initialize the project. That's where you start from. Like I can see, it's an empty directory. Yeah, it's an empty directory. So you really want to initialize your project with go mod init. Basically go mod init and then the name of your project or the name of the project. Maybe sometimes you might get to use the GitHub name, right? Like maybe GitHub github.com/kjasukwa, or /kjasukwa, then slash maybe go beginner. So that's actually like the part you might want to use that as the pathway in which this what do you call it, your app might be, your service might be. But you can just use any, you can basically use any name basically. So I'll probably use go mod init, since this project is named go beginner, so we'll use go mod init go beginner, right? Go beginner. Yeah, and then the go mod file has been created, will probably have been created. Yeah, it is. So what is a go mod file? Basically this go mod file houses your dependencies, right? When you are building a service, an app, a project, whatever you want to call it in Go, you probably you most likely you most likely will use other dependencies. You might want to use other libraries, right? I think that's the right term for it. I want to use other libraries, like for example, you want to, like for our router, we'll probably be using Gonic, right? We'll probably be using, sorry, Gene Gonic, right? So we might need to import it into our code base, and this is where this go mod file is where all the imports have, where we import everything. Like this, where our dependencies are synchronized with the code, right? I don't know if that makes sense, but if it doesn't make sense, it's okay. As we go ahead, we'll probably come back to the go mod file. You get to see the dependencies and what I was talking about, right? So let's close this. And also, before we close out, one more thing I need to explain to you. Yeah, this is the name that will be initialized. You can see go beginner. This is the name, go beginner. And then we can see the go version I'm using, 1.2 1.1, right? That's the go version I'm using. Nothing here yet. So where do we start from? We'll probably start from, we'll create the necessary directories, right? The major directories that we're probably going to use, which most times Um, we use the CMD, CMD. This is short for command, right? It's just short for command. This probably holds the code, the code in which you need to run to start. Okay, let's just say start your application, right? The code in which you need to start your application. For example, your main.go file might necessarily be here, might most likely be here, right? Your server, your server files and whatever your servers might be here, because you probably need your server to run your system to start your service, right? After that, we now have the internals, right? We have the internal. So this internal probably houses things that make your code work. The logic of your code is probably going to be housed in this internal, like maybe your controllers, whatever you are using, whatever your functions, your controllers, your methods, your your models, right? Including database, right? Including database, probably going to be housed um, in the internal things that make your code work. So my personal preference, I like to have a separate directory for what do you call it? I usually like to have a separate directory for my config, right? Config, just a personal preference. I don't think everybody does this, right? That's because this config is going to have like you need to read environment variables that there are environment variables you might not want to put in your code base in which you might need to read it from your env file. Anything you don't understand, we will get to that. You might need to read from the env file. So this config is where I I pull all the dependencies I need from my env file that might be needed in one place or another in my code to maybe to start the code base, like ports, or maybe like ports or database name and password and ports and all those things. That's where I do all my get all those details from the env. So speaking of env, before we do the env file, let's first of all create a git a dot git ignore file, right? Ignore file. So um this is important because when you are pushing your code base to git or to git, you might not want there are some files you don't want the world to have access to, right? You might not want the everybody else to have access to this file, like I said, environment. Maybe you're trying to integrate something and you're giving a secret key and a key and a secret, and you need those things in your code base. So what you normally do is you put it in an env file, then you pull those keys and secrets in the config, right? And then transport it to anywhere in the code base. Basically, that's what we do. Transport it to anywhere in the code base, and then from there, and what you do with the env file, you put the env file, for example, env file in the git ignore, so that people will not get that. So that when you're pushing your code base to git, you wouldn't push the env file. Yeah, I think that makes sense, right? You won't necessarily put your env file that has your keys, your secret, or things you are using to run that code, right? That you don't want to expose to the public. So that's it. So now we have done our git ignore. We can put our env in the git ignore. I think we can go ahead and create the env.env, right? We can go ahead and create the .env file. So basically, when we are adding this, what is going to happen? Like when we are adding this or committing this code base to push to git, it env.env is not going to commit, or it's not going to add, because you're not going to push it. That's what this means, right? So let's leave that. leave that as it is. So now can we go into the config? Let's start with the config, right? Let's since we're already talking about env already, so let's start with the config, and then we might probably need to install dependencies and then check out the go mod file for you to see how the go mod file helps in this, right? So config. So in this config, I'm probably going to create a Go file. Obviously, we are going to do everything in a Go file. We create a Go file that is what do you call it? Let's just call it config.go, right? Config.go, I think. Is a proper name for it. So so now I think in one of my videos I spoke about structs, so you might need to check out struct, but we're going to create a struct, our config, like struct that we might need a struct, basically, that we might need to, the values, right? The values of things that we are getting from our env. So most times struct is just a data, probably just a data type in Golang. So probably just check it out. So we're going to just create a custom data type, right? This probably used for object-oriented programming. If you're not familiar with object-oriented programming, please check that out. Like I said, I have a video about structs and how to manipulate structs and create structs. So check that out too. So right now, what fields do we need in this our config? Keep in mind that this config helps get things from the environment, from your env. It gets things from the env, things you don't want to expose to the public. So most times, since we are going to what do you call it, let's just, for the sake of clarity, let's just put ports in there, right? Let's just put ports. We might not want to expose um our ports, the ports in which we want to run the application on. But this is just for, I don't really, this is just for testing sake, so you can see how this works, right? You might not want to expose it. So I'm going to use what do you call it? I'm going to use a package to to get this env, to get this environment variables from the env file. So we'll get to this. So let's just put ports first. Now, most times, since we are going to set up our database, right? We are going to set up our database. We might need to put everything we need for our database, or maybe I should leave it to when I get there. I'm thinking let's just put it now. Probably when we get there, we can just explain better, right? DB, let's just put DB ports, right? DB ports is going to be a string, basically. We have DB user. If you're wondering why it's a string, I think I've also covered data types, basic data types in Go, so you will know strings. So you need to check out that video too if you are not familiar with strings, structs, or maybe what do you call it, strings, struct, interfaces, or maybe you want to talk about integers, numbers, booleans. So you can check out my previous videos, right? So like I said, when you're trying to initialize your DB, which we will get to, or maybe it might not be on this video, subsequent videos, you might need a DB port, you need the user, you also need the DB name, also need the DB name. All these are strings anyway. So DB name, you might also need the password, DB password, which is a string. What would you need? And sometimes you might just need the DB URL, right? Database URL, string, right? Don't worry, like if this, you might see why we need some of this or all of this. in due course, but just follow along. This is probably to initialize your database. We haven't gotten there yet, but I'm just putting this because you because I'm going to put it in my environment variable, and when I want my config to load all these things up from my environment variable, that's why I'm having the structure. You can always add more to it. We can always add, maybe if we're going to do a JWT secret, we'll probably add to it anything. Maybe if we are consuming APIs that has keys and secrets, we'll probably add it to it. So don't worry about that. So next, I'm going to use a package, right? I'm going to use a package that is going to help me um get get the environment variables from the env file, right? And it is actually called dojo. I think it's called joho slash go do go.env, something like that. Don't worry, you see it. So let me just write a function. Like I said, I've covered function before, so you might need to check out other videos on function. So this is going to just be, let me call this init config. Init config. So what I'm trying to say is that before we start the code base, we need to get a config, so the environment variables from this config, and so I'm going to return. I'm going to try and return the config. So return the config and an error, so that it's always good to handle your error in Go. Very important, right? You handle your error in Go so that anytime so that in case something is wrong, you can trace it, you can troubleshoot it. So that's one of the most important thing in Go, error handling, right? So what do? We're going to initialize our what do you call it? Our variable, have a variable called with this type. You remember this config structs is the data type. So it is our own customized data type. It's just like when we have a data type of string and integers and booleans, but just that this our data type has different fields in it, like, and these fields have of different, these ones are same data type strings, but they could have been of integers or bool. I've covered this before, so I wouldn't talk too much about it. So we're going to initialize this. We're going to have a variable of this our data type. So I'm going to just call it cfg, which stands short for config, and it is of type config. As easy as that, right? Because I want to load. So now, like I said, we are going to use a package. If you know, like I've talked about the structure of code base before. You normally have the package name, then we now have the import. So we're going to, an import is used to import the dependencies that are the package or libraries that you're working with, right? So for our first library, I think we should have think github.com we just need a library, this library that helps us read it would help us read the environment variable. So have github.com/joho. Yeah, this is it. As you can see, it is, we need to sync dependencies, so you can easily just do, like, okay, my idea why I love Golang is that it suggests what you need to do. You can just sync it here. Just do a sync. The sync it is going to import it, run the code, run it for you. It's going to go find it and get it for you in your code base. So you don't really need to do much. See, it's green now. That means it has been synced into the code base. But it is, you can see this red line. What this means is that we are not using it yet, and that's true, we are not really using it yet, but we're going to get to it. Also, like this red line, you can see we are not using it yet. So the thing with Go is that every line of anything you are bringing into the code base must be used. For example, we are not using this here, that's why it's red. We're not using this here, that's why it's red. It's going to throw an error. So now let us use it. So if you don't have if your IDE doesn't import this by default, right, you might need to do a go. If it doesn't import that by default, you might need to do a go get, and then github.com slash joho slash go dot env to actually get it, or is it go get or go install, whatever, to get and install it, right? So keep that in mind, right? So now it's not going to, like, for example, this ID is going to take on whatever we're not using out, right? It does that by default. We were not using the importers, right, to get out, but now when we start using it, it's going to bring it back. So now, so you can have like a go. I think the import is go do, yeah. You know what? Let's do this. Let's bring it back here and probably call it go env, right? Yeah, let's just name it go env. Right now, what we are doing is we are just naming it. We just named it go env, so that I want to see this so that when I'm using it. So now when you are calling, you can just call that package. You can just call the what we just imported, go env dot. See, it has different methods in it, right? It just have different methods in it. But right now, what we are looking for, we are looking for the load method, because we want to use it to load the environment variables from the env file. So we're going to use the load method, and then the file name. Normally, the file name is env. So you might just need to go like .env. So what the dots and the slash is saying is that we are trying to get to the root directory wherever we see the env, which is probably at the root directory. So you might probably need to search come out from this folder or check folders, come out from this folder and enter into the root directory. So that's what this dot whatever is calling. And you can see here this is highlighted, which is telling you we should handle error. So this I like this ID because it makes it makes job a little bit easy for you, right? So it may tell you to handle error, and this how you might just want to handle your error here, right? And then see, you need to handle the error. Basically, you have if error is not equals to nil, do something. Basically, that's what you're saying here. So this returns an error if something happens, if something goes wrong. So if this error is not equals to nil, we actually want it to actually do something, right? The thing is that sometimes you might not necessarily run on this environment. You might run on another environment. So I wouldn't want it to panic or to stop. So what I'm going to do is just log it. Just log dot print line an error message. So so the error message might be like error loading dot env, error loading dot env. So we're having error loading the env. So that's just want to know the kind of error we're having, right? So then I'm going to try and get another package, right? I'm going to get another package that what, or should I get another package, or we could, I think, no, let me just get it this I'm going to try and get another package. Why I like this package, right, is because it helps, it makes things easier, right? It makes things easier. I'm trying to I want to load everything at once, and so and give. So I will go, I think the package is what do you call it, env config. If I have it, let me just import it, right? Let me import it. See, right, we have imported log. This has imported log for us. So let me do So let me do a what do you call it? Let me import the another package, github.com, github.com/ I think k, yeah, this is it. This is it, yeah. So like I said, you might need to what do you call it, sync dependencies again, sync dependencies, and then I'll probably going to name it what will I name it? Let me just give it a env config, right? It's there. We're not using it yet. You can see it's not highlighted. I'm not using it yet. So what I'm doing, I'm going to use this to actually process the whole env right now. So in this method we have env config.process, right? Process. So you can actually, if you hover it, you can read process populates the specified struct based on environment variables. So all these specified structs that is in your env is going to be processed. Like, I don't know what the other English to use for it. It's just going to populates it for us, right? So, and down these things is saying we should what this is saying is this needs to be something needs to be passed through here, and if you overround it you might see prefix and then the interface in which you want to populate, right? That's basically it. So our prefix, we're just going to be empty because we're not putting any prefix in front of our environment variable. So it's going to be empty, and then the interface we actually want to what do you call it, what we want to populate is an interface of this type of type config. So we have config. So I'm going to have that. No, sorry, not sorry. Well, we already have it populated. We actually have it on the variable here. So I'm going to just have cfg, right? So, but I'm going to what I will do. I'm going to put an ampersand there. We'll probably come back to this later. Is just to is a way of me managing memory, right? I'm not Golang does value by copy, right? Also, so I don't want to copy it. I want to pass the whole I want to pass it from the whole memory down. I want to pass the whole config down, right? So that's why I'm having this. Like I said, over around this, it's telling us to handle error again. There might be error while processing this. So if there's an error, what do you want to do? So if you click here, it's going to give you the format of the error. If there's an error, you do, for example, now take note of different things, right? Here is showing showing red. Why it's showing red is because this variable name has already been used somewhere. So you don't need to initialize it again, right? You need to continue. Like for example, it is an error. We know that this is an error. So if there's an error here, it's going to log. Let's just log that error message here. Apart from that, we can just want to log the error here. So after logging this error, you might not have any need for this error anymore because you already see it here that it's going to be logged here. So you can now use this same container or variable, as the case may be, to return another error message. So yeah, it's not a new one. So you just say, okay, this error, this variable err should be equals to this particular error that is coming out from here, right? Because you can see this actually returns an error. So now what do you want to do when that error comes? So now you return nil because you don't want to return an config anyways. You're returning nil, and then you are also, what do you want to do apart from returning nil? You return the error too, right? You might just want to return the error, but for some reason I might like to know the kind of error, the mess. I might like to know, put a message to it so that to be able to trace it. So I might want to return fmt dot I think there's an fmt dot error. Yeah, that's it. I love this ID, makes job easier. just it suggests things you can that makes your job very easy for you, right? So that's it. So I'm going to have a message here, error processing. Let's say error processing environment variables, right? Processing environment variables. Um, so I want to, like I said, you don't need to understand everything now, right? We'll get to this. So I want to actually, sorry, what am I doing? What the person is, yeah. Then print the error. So fmt something f. What this, if you can overrun it, you can actually read what it is it does. You can see error formulates according to format specified and return the string as a value of satisfied error. So if the format specified include this, you can see, like you can see an example of it, right? The code fmt blah blah blah. You can have any data type. An error v stands for practically almost anything. If we were sure that if you want to return an integer, you probably be going with I think float is f or something like that, but basically I use v stands for almost anything. So that's the type that I'm returning anyways. So but you can read more on formats in Golang, so read more on that. So now, since we are done with that, what else are we looking at? So we have loaded our environment variable here using this package. We are processing it here, and then we need to return it. So we can use it anywhere. So you can just do a return c and nil. Since there's no error, you are actually returning nil. So now you're going to see, you can see that this is showing an error because you are not just returning this, you're returning the memory of it. Like I said, I'm like what I said here, I'm loading it from the memory. So you are returning it. That's what this you can do research on the ampersand asterisk later. Maybe I can take another tutorial on that, but now just know that we're not just returning it, we are returning it from the memory. So I might need to return ampersand. So that clears that error. So yeah, one more thing. Okay, I think this is a package name. That's why this is not coming. I think this package name actually collides with the package name itself. So we might not really need this name, or we might just need to change the name. So let me change this name. Let me use this. Let me use this. So let's use that. Right. So let's just use that because I think it coincide with the package name. That's why it wasn't showing. So yeah, one more thing, when it's always advisable, right? It's always advisable when you are going to use a package. You should actually try to read the documentation to know how the package works, right? So for this for what we are using, we might need to, why I actually love this env this package, this env config package, that this girl c height or env copy, because it's easier for you to set what is required and what is not required. For example, I might just say that my ports I don't really need a port because I might probably write the port in my code base already. I might probably write the port in my code base, so I don't really need it on my what do you call it, on my env. So that's, but that some required things that I might need, like the database port, database user, database name, that is coming straight from my env. I'm not going to put that in my code base so that nobody can have access to my database, right? So let's required um, required. So basically for here, I'm going to have like a false because it's not required, right? And then I have um, the tag that comes along with it, config, env config might just have a tag that comes along with it that goes I'll just name it ports, right? So this is the name. So what this is saying is that this is the name that um you should be checking for in the environment, going to the environment to check for this, right? You know what? Let's in a second thought, let's take this out, right? Let's just take this out, have a normal config, right? So that no confusion there, no confusion. So this is going to go there and check for these spots, right? And is it required? No, it's false, it's not required. Another one, so you can just copy this. I'm not going to type it all over again, just paste. So like I said, this is going to be required. So I'm going to have it here true, and the name I'm going to call it is probably going to be db ports, right? db ports again, true, true. Going to have db user. So these are just the names you might need to call it, but for now I'm going to probably change all these things to false so that I won't actually break the code base. But let's keep going so that when we get there you'll see. We have another one, what do you call it, still true, this true. So I'm going to call this db name, and then password we're going to have it as true too, but at the end of the day I'm probably going to change all these things to false since we don't until we set up our db. Then I just want you so you can see how this works exactly. db password, right? Then we have true and db URL. So I think now we are done with our config. This is the basic in a nutshell config. We are done setting up our config. So let's move to the cmd. I think, yeah, before we move to the cmd, I promised to show you, come back to show you the go mod file for you to see how we sync dependencies. You can see we are using two packages or two libraries, external libraries if you may, and that is this that we have got, that we got, and then this, and the environment env config, right? So you can see what go mod file does. It syncs our packages, our library. Like I said, this is actually, so it's cool, right? You need it. That's why we needed to initialize our code base first thing first. So after that, what do we do? Yeah, let's just go to the, yeah, before we finish, let's just take the name, this name, ports, go to the env, set a port. What ports are we gonna use? Nobody knows. What port should I use? What port should I use? Feel free to suggest. Let's just say, let's use 8080. Let's pass to 8080, right? Let's use 8080. Whatever. So now, like I've said in the time past, right? I've actually said this in the time past. For Golang, the main file is the entry point to every code, everything you're doing in Golang. You're starting it it runs, the main.go is actually the entry point. So let's just create that, create that, create the main file main.go, right? I'll probably call it package main.go, right? Package main, you must have a package main. So this is your main package there. So then after that, what will we be looking at, right? What else should we be looking at? We'll probably be looking at the let's create another directory under this cmd. Let's call it server. I'll just call it server. It's just another directory, right? So for the main file, for your main.go is just a func main, like I said before. Func main, that's where all your that's the entry point for to all your code. So let me just log something to show that it's working. Whenever we run the code, let's just say we log something. Log.print. Come on, give me the suggestion. Give me the suggestion. Oh, just I think it's capital letter print. Dot. Yeah. Print line. Let me just print. What do I want to print? Still is a bit slow. Okay, that's imported log. This, yeah, that's what I was looking for. Imported log. So I'm going to just print. Let's just be cheesy. Just go hello world. Okay, so now to write hello world, go hello world. So right now it's just going to, if you run this, it's just going to give you hello world. Nothing. We have not called anything that we have done in this main. So we just set up our server. So that's the next probably set up our server, and hopefully set up our what do you call it, our server, our router, and see where we go from there, right? So for our server, let's create a Go file. Just write server.go, right? Server.go. Let's call this func stats, which basically we are going to use it to, well, what am I doing? Sorry. Come on. Basically, this is where we are going to start our own server. So what we are doing there, we now come here to the main.go, and then we can just call it here. It's in this directory, so we're going to point to that directory, server directory, and then server dot you have starts, server dot start, right? I hope that's capital letter, right? Let's confirm that that's capital letter. So yeah, so while we are coding, let me explain some other things to you. If it's anything that is small letter, you're actually hiding it from other packages, from other directories getting access to it. So that's why we couldn't see the server.start here. For example, we can have server, but you're not going to see the .start because it's in small letter. It's used to keep things within that directory, in that directory. But if you need to export such functions or such variable, such function, such variable, you might need to change it to a capital letter, right? You need to change the capital letter. For example, if you come to our config file here, you can see that most of this I'm using capital letters because I want to export it to, I'm using capital letter to start it because I want to have to, like, this config is a capital letter, init capital letter, the ports, even the ports db, whatever, starting with capital letter because I'm trying to export it to other directories that I might need to use it. So same thing with this, the server. We need to put that in capital letter because we need to export it to the main.go. This way we're probably going to use the server dot. Okay, now it's going to find a way to get a server dot start. All right, see, gets it here. So what happens there? It went straight to that what do you call it? Went straight to the um go beginner cmd server, went to that straight to that server directory, and guess now it's being called. So now let's see what do we need in our server, right? What do we need in our server? The first thing we are going to probably get in our server is we are going to call the config the config file that we just initialized, right? So we are going to try and get point to that, like I said, you point to that directory config dot I think the name is init config, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry, come on. I'm having butterfingers today. Config dot init. That should be the name. Init config. I'm not sure. Just wait it to load up, or we can just go here. Copy the name. Yeah. Init configs. Come back here. All right. We have imported that, like I said. You need to handle error or whatever you need to handle here. So handle error here. So this is going to give you the configs here. Let's just rename this to CFG. And if there's an error loading it, what should we do? I think we should just we might log fatal, just stop the error, but we need to be sure that this is where the error is coming from. We need to see what error it's giving. So log dot fatal, let's do log fatal error, pass the error in there. So that's it. So now this is we are so now let me just explain what is happening here. What's happening here is that when this code is run, because it's going to be run with the main.go, this will be start is going to print hello world here, or might probably print hello world or welcome to our service. Let's just do welcome to our service, right? Going to do hello world, or maybe a welcome to our service, and then come in here and start it up, start the server. And then in this server, right now in this server, all we have is we're just loading the config file right here. That's the only thing we're doing, right? We're just loading the config file. We have not used it for anything yet, right? So by right, since we have already set our port, right? We have actually just we have set our port already. So we might just let's just get the port out. Maybe the only thing we might want to do right now is print it, maybe print it, or right, because I'm not yet done the router, I've not done router, I've done the controllers. So we'll probably just, the only thing we can do maybe right now, maybe use the ports to start the service. Maybe while the service is starting, we might just want to print out something, right? So what I'll just do is for the port, let's just see how we can use the ports, right? Let's okay, so ports is equals to the thing is this for you to run a service, you might for your server, for you to run, there's a format. Like I said, you can actually just go ahead and and code the port in your what in this thing. Code the port directly in your code. It might not really make any difference, right? So let's just do fmt dot. Let's say we are here with the format again, the printf format. So like I said, we go through the format I need to know. Fmt.printf is going to be in a string format. So we're going to have this. We can print it later to see. So this is s. We're trying to pass in a string. Before we use v, because we're trying to pass in error, like basically any database that you might not know. You might not know its type. So you might not know how to represent its type. But for s, we know s is for string. We know how to represent that. So and what we are getting from the ports is actually string. So what we do here, we're passing in c the config dot ports. So we are making it. So right now, in case this doesn't pass in, because let me just finish this line of code. If ports is equals to that, then we set our default port here. That's what we're trying to do here. We set a default port is equals to, let's just say 1991, right? So now what this does is that we have loaded our config file, and obviously in our config file port is false, right? For port is actually false. So we might put a port there, we might not put a port there. But if we put a port there, we are going to it's like you're adding. What we did here is, it would be what we did here. You can comment this out. Is the same as doing this. Is the same as maybe doing ports supposed to same as doing this. So I think they call it concatenating, right? You're just adding whatever you have as ports dots. You're just adding this to this. The same thing, but we're just using the fmt printf format to make it look better. But I think this is better. I think the first one is better. But in simple terms, this is just what we are doing, right? For example, we will get this, probably get 8080, right? So in this 8080, what we are trying to do, we're just trying to add this column, right? This column in front of it. So we have it in this format, like column 8080 string, right? So apart from, so what you're saying is, now if we don't have anything in this, if we do not have any ports in this config, if we don't have any ports in this config, for example, this config has ports. Let's see if you print this config, right? We're going to see that this config that we got has ports. It has the database name, it has database URL, it has, because all the things, that's our data type. That was our customized type. It has all these data types in it. So if we are trying to pull this, what we're trying to do is that right now we don't need DB here, we don't really need all this here. Whatever we need, we are going to use it. But right now all we need is the ports, and that which is what we are using, right? This is what we are using. So now, so what this means is that if the port here is empty, if you're adding empty plus this, you're still going to get this. That's what we are doing here. So if this port is equals to this only, that means we couldn't get any port or any number inside the env. So I'm just setting this port to this. That's just the basic information. If that's not clear, maybe you can reach out to me, can explain better, but hopefully you get that. So take this out and comment this, and then we're back. So then the next thing we would want to do is there is you need to read up on HTTP server in Go. That is where we might need to what do you call it? we in HTTP server in Go, that's where you initialize your port, you put your port, you put your routers, and then you get to initialize it, do a what do you call it, a listen and serve. You listen to that port in case of anything is coming in, you can pick it up from there. But right now, the next thing we need to do, we need to work on our router, because without router you can't actually do the HTTP server. You need a router to do it. So we're going to work on our router next. And I think in order not to make this video too long, we might need to stop it here and then pick up router in the next series, right? So at least what we have here, you have enough to at least you would know what a config file is, or how to set up your config. You know what an what a .env file is. You know what a go mod file is. So next time, once we go ahead next time, we'll probably start with router and see how far we can go. Maybe router, database authentication, or just see how far we can go, right? All right. So, but for us, let's just see what will happen if we run this. If we actually run this, like right now, it's just going. It's my take is just going to it might throw an error, because like I said, all these are true, but we don't have but it's not in our env, so you can see it's not here, so you might probably try an error. But it's always good to run your code to see to troubleshoot, to understand better how it works, right? So for now, let's see if you're running this code. Remember, you're actually running the main.go. So your main.go is inside this cmd directory. This way you're going to actually run. If you do the normal go run main.go, it's going to show an error saying no such file in or directory, right? There's no main.go here on this directory, so you have to go in here to find your main.go. So it's probably going to be go run cmd, which is that the directory / main.go. And like I say, it's going to, so let's look at this. Yes, printed is an error, but before the error, you can see welcome to our service. So what it's trying to tell you, that it starts from here, welcome to our service. It now gets in here, it now runs that start, and in the start, the first thing it's going to check for is going to try and initialize your config file. So if it comes here, it gets in here, there's no error here, it starts load. There's an env file here, there's no error, so that's why it did not log or print error loading env. But you can see it actually printed error processing variable environment variables, required key db port missing value. So as you can see, that's the error there. What we did, like you can see, this is the error message that we passed through here, which is the same as this, and then we now have the error here, which is after, like I've explained this for you before. This, I pass something in, it's like adding. So we now have this error here, which is actually required, the error is actually required key db ports missing value, which is this. We said it must be true, but right now it's missing. There's no value for it. So what is it's only failing here because this is the first one it's asking. But if it gets to here, it's going to fail. It's going to fail, right? So what I'll do, we might just put, I'm not going to put false, I'm just going to comment it out, so that when we need it, we will bring it back in, right? For now, like I said, the ports, although we have ports here, is not, whether it's here or not, is not going to try an error, because of we said that the requirement is false. So let's just try something. Let's make it true and take it out from here. take it out from here. So if you run it, it's going to give you the same error. See, it gets ports missing. That's because its value is supposed to be, or what do you call it? It's supposed to be for is true. So now, but if we put the port back here and we run that, welcome to our service. It has run. Nothing going to happen again because the port has done as run. But just for you to get a glimpse of what is happening here, let's print this port out, right? We just print this port out. Log dot print line print the port, right? Port. So we're going to print this port out here. So we can see that see what is happening. That's actually gotten that port. So if you print this out here, so you see welcome to our service 80 port 8080, which is this 8080 plus 8080 plus this column, which is that's the port there. So what happened here is that it actually saw this port here. So this port is not empty, but if this port was empty, it would actually enter here. So now let's log let's log port here. Let's log this port here. Log dot print line. Let's name this port 1. Or should we say initial ports? Let's say initial ports, right? Initial ports. So I'm just trying for you to follow what we have been doing so far. Look at the code. So initial ports. Let's log this here, and then final port, right? Let's call this final port. And let's make a couple of changes. Let's go to our config file. Change this back to false. Change this back to false, right? So this is false, and now let's go to our env. Let's remove any ports there. Let's remove the ports we have there, and let's run it and see what happens. So see, it runs. It actually runs because first of all, we are saying that we don't really care if we specify a port or not. We don't really care, so it's false. That's why I said required false. And then once you go into the server, you can actually see that in this server, the first time once we read this config and we try to get the port here, we added the port to this column, and then we printed it out here. You can see it's empty. It's just the column that's printing. It's actually empty. That's why there's nothing, just the column is printed. So now what this said is if port is equals to just this column, which is this, then you enter here and make this port 1991, right? Plus the column anyways. So and then you print it out again, and that is why you're getting the 1991 here. I hope that was understood. If you don't understand, reach out to me in the comment section. I might be nice enough to explain it further or better. All right, so stay tuned. Next time we'll be dealing with routers and HTTP packages in Golang. So thank you.